Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Giants!
With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Calling all, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, February 10th, 2020, and this is episode 189 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of your San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me today, once again from Georgia, is Eric Nathanson. What's up, man?
Not much. I'm just suddenly excited for baseball. FanFest was this past weekend. I know people are starting to think about Giants baseball again, but pitchers and catchers, I mean, it's tomorrow. Like, baseball's here. It's finally here. We always feel like the winter is so long, the offseason is so long, but in reality it's November, December, January, and a little bit of February. So it's only like really 3.5 months that we don't have baseball, but it feels like so long, and I'm just so happy to be talking about actual baseball and looking forward to a new season. Like, there's no more goodbyes, no more like parades or anything like that anymore. It's kind of like what's next, you know, where we get to see what's next now as Giants fans. So, you know, I'm happy to be talking baseball and looking at the new old, you know, with Hunter Pence and so on coming back, the new old Giants of 2020. It's just, I'm glad baseball is back.
It's weird. We'll get into this. Yeah, it's a strange dichotomy that Farhan seems to be exhibiting here, but like you said, it's really only 3.5, 4 months, but it just seems like such a dark time, even though there's Christmas and the holidays and Happy New Year, and there's still football, and you and I are football fans and all that stuff.
Well, we love our families, too. Yes, absolutely.
Families? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't... Okay, I guess maybe we're supposed to, but anyway, no.
Right.
But yeah, they're back, and I know most sports fans say February is one of the worst months of the year because very little happens. And while that's objectively true, at least that's when spring training starts. So for baseball fans, it's like a rite of passage. It's that rebirth. It's the hope springs eternal kind of thing. Maybe our team will be okay. Everybody has the same record. It's that great feeling, you know?
Everybody wants to spew that bullshit line. My team can win it all this year. And the reality is 20 of the teams are not going to win it all this year. And we may be rooting for one of those 20 teams. But it is that time. That is that moment to be hopeful because nothing has happened yet.
And that being said, I don't think we're objectively hopeful for the Giants' postseason chances in 2020. But, you know, in a way, it takes the pressure off, I guess, if you will, about any expectations, which is really funny. And I don't want to dive in too much to the Super Bowl, but I do want to talk about it because I'm a 49ers fan and, you know, you're a football fan, obviously a Bears fan. But, you know, speaking from the 49ers fan perspective, going 4-12 last year was, you know, and they've been bad for 3 or 4 years. You just never had any expectations. And coming into this season, you know, it was like, you know, I predicted we have a little pool in our office, and I predicted 6 wins for the Niners this year. And even the best prognosticators, most hopeful people I saw put them at 500, 8-8, you know. They blew those expectations away, obviously, winning 13 games. Those 3 losses were all in the last drive, the last play of the game. They were that close to being a perfect record. They obviously crushed the Vikings and the Packers in the playoffs after getting the number 1 seed barely by an inch. You know, as they tackled Hollister. That was something, wasn't it?
This season, yeah.
And I just want to, you know, if you guys don't care about the Super Bowl or the 49ers, fast forward about 5 minutes. Just go ahead and save yourself. But, you know, the way that it was set up in 2013-14 when the Niners made their 6th Super Bowl, I was 100% certain they were going to win that Super Bowl. Only because I was, I guess, bestowed with the fact that the Niners were 5-0 in Super Bowls, right? And how could they lose one? They're the 49ers.
Yeah.
They don't lose Super Bowls, right? And going into that game, I was supremely confident because even with the Giants, with the 49ers, with the Warriors, with whomever, I'm always a very skeptical person. I'm always thinking like, oh, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're going to find some way to lose. And that game was my only, I think, championship game where I was 100% confident that my team was going to win. And obviously they went down quickly. The lights went out. They came back, and they had those 4 plays, first and goal, 3 passes to Crabtree, and that was the end of the Super Bowl. And that crushed me. I mean, it really did, because I was like, I felt like a kid who found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. You know what I mean? It was just like, whoa, the Niners did not win a Super Bowl because it was set up to win it in dramatic fashion. And of course they were going to win it. I mean, that was a no-doubter. And they didn't because of the stupid play calling. And then we fast forward to this Super Bowl, and I did not have that supreme confidence, but I felt like, God, the Niners had the best turnaround, tied for the best turnaround in NFL history. They got the number 1 seed by an inch. They crushed the Packers and Vikings. Their running game is just solid. Yeah, they're playing Mahomes and the Chiefs, but traditionally defense, top 5 defenses beat top 5 offenses in the Super Bowl. So I felt good going into this one. And obviously the game, fast forward to 7.5 minutes left in the game, was going exceptionally well for the Niners.
20-10.
20-10. And the wheels fell off. And, I could sit here and, blame the play calling by Shanahan being way too conservative. In the end of the first half. That was a weird one, by the way.
Oh, my God. I hated it. I was screaming at my TV. I'm not a Niner fan. I picked the Chiefs. I'll be honest. I was rooting the Chiefs the whole way, and I was trying to be good because I know you all love the Niners and stuff out there. And you're my audience. And we all love the Giants together, and I don't want to alienate myself. But I love watching the Chiefs. I love Mahomes. They're fun to watch. Like, our household's gotten into them. But I was screaming at my TV about what Shanahan was doing at the end of the first half. Like, he let like 40 seconds run off before the 2-minute warning. Yeah. And then they came back and he let like another 40 seconds run off. So when you got the ball back with 1:10, you had 3 timeouts, but you had 1:10. And then after 2 running plays, you throw the ball down the field once, you get 1 completion, and everybody gets excited, but no, pass interference, and it derails it. So he didn't even give the team a chance. You had to have been going crazy at that point.
So me and I went to a very large Super Bowl party, and I played flag football and pulled my groin, long story, but I'm sitting there with a beer, nursing my injury, and I'm talking with a couple of, my friends who are devout 49er fans. And once they got to that 4th and 10 and they had to punt, it was like, yes, they're going to have time to score before the half, and they get the ball. Right? Yeah. And the clock is just going. And, they're in the punt formation, and the clock's just going. And then they show John Lynch, the GM for the 49ers, up in his box, going, timeout, timeout, timeout. And no, he just let it roll. And they kick it, and then, handoff, let another 20, 30 seconds roll off. Then it was a 20-yard pass to Jeff Wilson. And then it was suddenly like, oh, well, now we're in good field position. Let's take a shot. And then there was that 44-yard pass to Kittle that got called back for the... I mean, look, I am not going to blame the loss on the refs, but the refs did not help the Niners this game for many reasons, and it just put them at a disadvantage, I would say. The Niners shot themselves in the foot, don't get me wrong. They are the ones that lost the game. I'm not even going to say the Chiefs won the game. I truly believe the Niners handed the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs, but it did not help that the refs had some really, really bad calls. That was one of them. Was it technically pass interference? Yeah, maybe during the regular season, but usually in the Super Bowl they let them play. And certainly with the no calls on the Chiefs for holding and offsides in the fourth quarter, it just kind of it was contradictory to the pass interference call on Kittle because it was a bunch of hand fighting. And he had him beat anyway. And that's the sad thing, is that he had him beat and he would have made the catch anyway. But that being said, Steve Young was on the KMBR show earlier this week on Thursday, and it was the first interview he had with KMBR since the Super Bowl, and his main message was this. Because he's a quarterback, obviously. Yeah. He's like, imagine you are Jimmy Garoppolo, and you realize you're getting the ball back with 2 minutes left, and the coach lets the clock roll. And then you get a kick, and then you hand off and let the clock roll. The message is loud and clear. I do not trust you to get the ball down the field. I think you're going to throw an interception, fumble, or go 3 and out, and Kansas City's going to get the ball back, and Mahomes with a minute left is going to score. I don't want that. So Steve Young was really pissed about that, saying that Shanahan it was a clear message. It was a clear message to Jimmy G and the offense. I don't trust you to score. I don't trust you to get down the field. And he said that was it. That was the seed in his head which affected him in the fourth quarter because he didn't have the trust of his coach. Could you imagine Andy Reid, if the Niners were in that, they flipped the situation, do you think Andy Reid's calling a timeout on 4th and 10? Yeah, absolutely. He's given Mahomes all the time he needs to drive down the field. And if the Niners, if he called the timeout and they had a minute 50 left and they went 3 and out and Kansas City used their timeouts, whatever, and they get the ball back and Mahomes scores a field goal or a touchdown, no one, I don't think, is going to come back and rail Shanahan for that because he was aggressive. He was trying to score. You don't want to limit your opportunities. They took an offensive possession and literally threw it away. They said, we don't need it. And it was tied going to halftime. It's like, why are you playing so scared? No one's going to remember people who are scared.
Did you see the quote where Shanahan said he felt comfortable at 10-10?
Yeah.
Which just tells you all you need to know about what Steve Young was saying. He's right. That would, if I were a leader of a bunch of players and my coach didn't give me the opportunity to perform, I'd feel like he'd lost confidence in me, and I could see how that could affect something like the fourth quarter. And I mean, Jimmy G was something like 3 for 11 in the fourth quarter.
He was 19 for 23 or so leading up to that spell that he ended the game 3 for 11. And I'm going to criticize Shanahan because of not just the first half call there, but also the freaking Mostert ran for 220 yards against the Packers. The offense ran silly. Garoppolo threw 6 times against the Packers, and not that much more against the Vikings. The running game was dominant. They were averaging 6.9 yards per carry in the Super Bowl into the fourth quarter. And with that lead, it was very odd. There was one play in particular. This is after the Chiefs scored their first touchdown of the 3, right? It was 20-17.
Yep.
And Mostert runs for 17 yards, first down. Mostert runs for 5 yards, 2nd and 5. Pass. Incomplete. Punt. What the F? Now, I'm not saying you should nurse a 3-point lead. A 3-point lead obviously is literally nothing. But at that point, your running game, it's not just to run the clock down because you don't have enough. So he made a statement at the end of the game because they asked him. They said, why didn't you run the ball more to burn the clock? And he's like, no. There was too much time on the clock. Mahomes was going to get time no matter what. So the goal was to burn the clock by getting first downs. And it's like, right, but it wasn't like your ground game wasn't working. It was just a tool to burn the clock. It was a tool to gain yardage. Like, you had 2nd and 5 after a 17-yard run and a 5-yard run. And you pass? Like, it infuriated me to no end. And who knows what would happen, but reality is I just thought that they should have ran the ball way more in the fourth quarter, not just that series, but other series, because the running game was unbelievable. Deebo Samuel was on fire with the jet sweeps and end arounds. Kansas City could not contain the edge. He didn't do it at all in the second half. Like, what? Like, he had 56 yards rushing on 3 plays. Like, why aren't you running him more? It was very odd. That said, Garoppolo was like 19 of 23 or something like that. It was all short passes. And that 3rd and 15 play, of course, which was the catalyst, where, by the way, that pass was the longest hang time of any pass of the entire season. Now, normally you would say, oh, well, that probably is getting picked off, right? And, of course, there was no one around within 5 yards.
Wide open. There was nobody near him. It was weird.
I mean, it could have hung for another 3 seconds for all we know.
Yeah, it really could have.
And it was so sad because, obviously, the coverage broke down. The secondary just, I don't know what happened. I don't know who to blame, if it was, Sherman or Morris. I don't know who the hell, the fault was to be blamed on. But I will say this. Armstead was in his face when he launched the ball. So it was an incredible throw by Mahomes. Tip of the cap to him. But, oh, my God, the replays of Bosa getting murdered in the flat. That was frustrating because, again, let him play. I get it. But, you call Kittle for a little push, a little touch, and then Bosa's getting freaking love hugged over in the corner, and he can't get to Mahomes. There's no holding call there. That was frustrating. But, and there was the offsides. Kansas City was like offsides by like 3 yards. He was like jumping in the neutral zone. I saw that live. We were all like, oh, there's a flag. Free play. And it was incomplete. It was like, don't worry. There's there's no flag?
Where's the flag?
How could there not be a flag on something that I can see on a tiny little TV in a bar, you know what I mean, while I'm half inebriated? How they have NFL officials on the line just to watch for that. And I see it on a tiny TV from far away. I don't get it. I'm not saying the fix is in. I don't know how the officials blow some of these calls. But reality is, besides those calls, the Niners, their vaunted defense allowed 3 straight touchdowns, 21 unanswered points. And the offense decided to go 3 and out 3 times, or 4 and out for the last play. And then there was no timeout called. So after that, I was questioning, you've probably seen the replays, but Kittle and Sanders and Samuel open so many times in that last couple of series.
Man,
because
Baldy breaks it down great.
Yeah, exact. Baldinger, just great breakdown. It's because, they were relying on the checkdowns, the little short plays, and it seemed like Kittle really got tunnel vision. And he was like, here's my primary. Oh, here he is. Throw to him. He didn't go through his progressions at all because he had Kittle and others open down the field, and they were pissed. You could see them. Their body action was like, I was open, dude. And they were wide open. And that play over the top on the 3rd and 10, first of all, they're only down by 3 points at the time, or 4 points. I question, why are you shooting for the end zone when you're at the Chiefs' 49-yard line with 1:45 left and all 3 timeouts? Right?
To show that you do have confidence in your quarterback and that you don't doubt him like you did 30 minutes earlier.
I guess. Honestly,
I think that's my only explanation for that.
To Sanders' credit, he got open. He was open. He had his man beat.
He had the step. Yeah, absolutely did.
And, Garoppolo completely overthrew him by 5 yards, and he just missed the throw. Now, that said, that was the aggressive play. And what's funny is that if they had scored a touchdown there, everyone's like, oh, the Niners would have won the Super Bowl. No, there was like 1:40 left. My God, you would have given Mahomes an eternity. So that's why I question that play, just for the fact that he goes out of the first half not wanting Mahomes to score, but then he calls the aggressive play on a relatively low percentage throw over the top to give you 4th and 10. But if you did score, you have Mahomes with 1:40 left. It just didn't make any sense to me. And, of course, out in the flats, you had Samuel wide open for a first down.
You want to know the last time Samuel touched the ball in this game? There was 13:37 left in the 3rd quarter. So it was just after halftime. Deebo Samuel ran around the left end for 14 yards.
And 14
yards. That was the last time.
And it's incredible to me. He just abandoned that kind of play calling. He shifted gears into a super conservative, but yet not conservative. It was weird. He was like, let's just stop the end around and sweeps that we're working, but let's throw more. I don't know. It was an odd thing. So, Shanahan himself, Kyle Shanahan, has obviously lost 2 Super Bowls as offensive coordinator, essentially, after having a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter. And only 3 teams have blown a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter, the Seattle being the other one against New England. And he's commanded 2 of them. He's been outscored 46-0 in the 4th quarter of 2 Super Bowls. It's inexplicable. It really is. And as a 49ers fan, sorry everyone that I went on too long about this. It was extremely frustrating because it's not, if the Chiefs just came out and won a typical football game, I would have said, oh, okay, Chiefs won. They were the better team today. I firmly believe the Niners were the better team that day. I really do. Even though the score doesn't say that, for 53 minutes, for most of the game, the Niners completely dominated that game. And they were like that bad infomercial. They just dropped all their buckets of soapy water and, they had a complete aneurysm at the end. You just don't see that in Super Bowl history, and it was embarrassing and frustrating, and the refs didn't help, and it hurts. It hurts as a 49ers fan.
You can't do that kind of stuff when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
If the 1984 San Francisco 49ers had done the same thing against Dan Marino in the second half,
right.
Dan Marino's script might be different at this point. But the thing with the Niners this year, their defense, there was flashes. It happened in the Packer game, and it happened a couple other times during the season. I think the Seahawks did it on them, where they just suddenly would give up yardage, chunks of yardage, and touchdowns, like on back-to-back drives or 3 out of 4 drives in the second half, where suddenly the Niners' defense looked lost, and it happened to them in the worst time possible.
Yeah,
and you're right. They absolutely did blow it. I obviously give credit to Mahomes too, because the guy was unbelievable. But I agree. I feel like Shanahan blew that Super Bowl. I don't feel like it was on Garoppolo at all. I don't think he did anything wrong necessarily. I think abandoning the running game, screwing up the clock management, and it's not like the Chiefs were stopping those different running plays. They were
That's the thing. They were working.
Yardage. If you had to adjust if you adjusted it because you thought the other team was going to adjust theirs, then you thought too much. That's too many levels. That's sitting at a poker table and thinking too many times, well, he thinks that I think, that he thinks that I have, that he has, that I think. Don't do that. Just if it's working, you use it. Don't think, oh, well, they're going to adjust soon, so let's go to what, beats their adjustment.
Yep.
They never adjusted. They were happy to give up chunks of yardage. The Chiefs were happy to let Mahomes have to keep going down the field and scoring. They were good with a shootout. Had the Niners scored 2-3 more touchdowns, I believe the Chiefs would have scored 2-3 more touchdowns possibly as well. Like, it was that kind of a game. They were okay with that, and then all of a sudden, just the offense collapsed. And I feel bad for you. That's tough. You had a 10-minute lead with 7 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, 10-point lead, and your team didn't come through. It had to have been a rough end to Super Bowl parties.
ESPN had them at 97% win probability or whatever at that point. So it is very frustrating because you play that game again 10 times, they don't lose it again. They don't. I just think it was that one time where everything just collapsed perfectly. But it is what it is, and all the Niners championship gear is now in a third world country, and we move on. We move on to baseball. Sorry for that little tangent there, but
we do it every year.
We do it every year. We got to talk about it. I mean, we have a lot of overlap. I know you're not a Niners fan, but we have a lot of overlap with our audience. A lot of our audience is our 49ers fans. So hope you appreciated that. Or maybe you didn't, and you're throwing your phone through your window right now because you don't want to relive it. Because that's where I am too. It's been 8 days, and it still feels fresh. It does not. I lost sleep the first 2 or 3 days after the Super Bowl because it was just so painful. I mean, if you told me the Niners would lose the Super Bowl next year after the previous season, I would have been like, oh my God, I'll take that. That's insane. That's way overachieving. But it's the manner in which they lost. Again, it wasn't like, oh, they just got beat by the Chiefs. It was they handed it. They handed the game to their opponent. And Patrick Mahomes is the face of the NFL, and the NFL is happy because they wanted Mahomes to win. There's no doubt about that. And they got what they wanted, and here we are. So, but let's move on to baseball. Pitchers.
Okay, quick question before we get to baseball. Did you tune into any XFL action this weekend?
I only looked at highlights. I did not see that live.
Okay, because I can't do it. I tuned in for like 5 minutes, and I can't do it. You know why? Because it's baseball time. My Sundays, I have Sunday rituals with NFL football and stuff like that. I don't have time for some other league. Baseball's coming up now. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. It's like, football's over. Stop cramming it down my throat. I just could not get into it at all. The XFL is not for a guy like me, and I think that's because we're baseball guys.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. That's why we do a podcast is about the San Francisco Giants and pitchers and catchers reporting tomorrow and workouts beginning in 2 days.
What I think is so funny is that in the highlights that I was watching, obviously the attendance wasn't great at any of these games. It was like 10,000, 14,000, whatever. But my question was, how are there like fans of these teams? It's really weird. There's like all these
Yeah, I don't
fans
get it.
decked out in like Defenders gear or Roughnecks gear or whatever the hell the team names are. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Why do you care? Like, it's not even an expansion team in a league. It's like it's a new league, but it's a rebirth of a defunct league. It's odd because we have the San Francisco Demons way back in the day that played at Oracle Park. Well, at the time it was Pac Bell or whatever, and I didn't give a crap then when we had a San Francisco team, and now I could give two craps less. Like, I think what's going to happen, they'll get their little spike, on PR and pub for the first few weeks, and then it's going to just dwindle down into nothingness, and XFL will probably last 2 years and close its doors.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't. I'm with you. I don't understand how you just wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm going to support this and I'm going to be a fan of this team. Like,
That's weird.
I don't know. Sports are a thing that are handed down. Football, I believe, is that way. Baseball is that way. Like, all of my sports allegiances are my father's sports allegiances. Which is why it's weird that I never understood. My father grew up in New York and moved to Chicago, and he only kept baseball. Like, he was not a New York Giants fan for football. Yeah. He was not a New York Rangers fan for hockey. He wasn't really a hockey fan. He wasn't a New York Knicks fan, really. He became a Chicago Bulls fan. He became a Chicago Bears fan. He really loved the Bears. So, it's weird that the Giants stuck with. And I guess that's why baseball, supersedes it all. That's why I could never imagine watching football on a Sunday afternoon in March or April, because that's when baseball is played, not football.
Well, yesterday, was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago, we had FanFest, and the day before that we had Media Day for the Giants. And every year I've gone to Media Day for like 6 years in a row until previous year I had a conflict in my schedule. And then this year I inquired to go to Media Day on Friday, and unfortunately it's always been in the morning on the Friday before FanFest, and this time it was in the afternoon. It was from 1:30 to 5 at Oracle, and I couldn't make it work. I mean, it's just, first of all, I had baseball practice. I'm managing a team again for my son, and we had all sorts of stuff going on, and then of course the drive home would have been right through the knife of epic traffic from the Bay Area going south to my town. So I couldn't make it. But on the other hand, it was like, Eric, I mean, we just talked about how we're not very hopeful for this season. There's not much of a draw to go to Media Day. There really isn't. I mean, yes, you have Buster Posey and Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt and a couple other guys. But to be honest, there wasn't that allure that there has been in seasons past where I'm excited to go talk to some of these guys. This year, I'm just not. I just wasn't. So even if I could have made it, I just wouldn't have had that motivation to interview those players and ask them those poignant questions about, how did the World Series feel? What do you think is going to happen this year? What's your favorite taco stand? It just it wasn't there, and so it was almost a relief that it was like later in the day, because I was like, I definitely can't go, but I don't know if I would have wanted to go in the first place, which is sacrilege. That's blasphemy. Like, why wouldn't I want to go talk to the players?
It's a result of so many things. I mean, with the new management coming in, with Kapler being the manager now, and we know the team is changing at this point. The stars are not as plentiful, I guess you could say. I mean, I know they brought out I don't know who they brought out Media Day wise, but I'm sure it was the regular crew of Crawford and Belt and Posey and maybe Longoria, because he's a veteran. Smarsha, I have no idea if Cueto was there. I could see him just going to Scottsdale. I don't think he was there this weekend. I don't know. Other than that, like, look at that. That's it. That's it. I can't name any more stars, quote unquote, of the Giants off the top of my head. So I kind of get why there was no, it's not the same anymore. It's not Bochy. It's not the same feel. We don't know what to expect from this team. So, like, is excited the right term for this upcoming season, or is curious more than anything else? Yeah. And so, seeing the same guys, I mean, they're just going to spout company lines, Brandon and Buster right now. They don't really know what's going on until they get down to Scottsdale.
It's true. But FanFest was good, and, people had a lot of fun. And, of course, one of the highlights for FanFest was the day or two prior, the Giants announced the signing of free agent outfielder Hunter Pence. He's back, baby. The Reverend is back. And, I'll be honest with you. It's a 1 year, $3 million deal, so it's not terribly expensive. It's so funny how we can say that, right? Like, if you or I earned $3 million over 10 years, I mean, we would be ecstatic, But the reality is it's not much in the baseball world, and obviously he's coming off an all-star campaign with the Rangers. The only thing I am concerned about, which everybody's concerned about, is he's 37 years old, and he's already designated to be pretty much a platoon outfielder. He's not going to be starting every day, but do you think there's any chance that this guy is going to, because he remodeled his swing after playing down in the Dominican or whatever in winter ball, and there's that great video on YouTube, the Pence method, which is a lot of fun. I mean, the guy really dedicated his life, his off season, without getting paid to go reinvent his swing, and it worked. He got elected to the All-Star team. His second half was not good because of injuries, but that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that he's going to get out there with the Giants in spring training or the first part of the season. He's going to get hurt. But if he weren't going to get hurt, Eric, do you think that he is capable, because he hit 18 bombs last year in limited action after the second half injury, do you think he's capable of hitting 20 home runs as a healthy player?
I don't see why not. I really don't. If his swing is revamped enough, apparently he murdered left-handers last year. So that puts him in a good line for the platoon you mentioned, probably with Dick out in left field. I think Yastrzemski or Dubon apparently might be the center fielder. So I can see Dick over in left and maybe Hunter helping. I don't think they want to put Hunter out in right field anymore. But health, that's really what it is health. I think the only way this goes wrong after last season with Hunter Pence is if he hits like 230 and only has like 4 home runs, by mid-June, then this went kind of wrong, and they'll find some injury or something for him, or you better hope. Then he pressed too much, because that's the only way I can see him doing something like that. If he rolls out something like 265, 270, hitting like 15 bombs, I think the Giants will be happy.
Yeah, for sure. And they also brought back a fan favorite in Panda. Now, of course, he had a torn rotator cuff, so he had Tommy John. Sorry, not rotator cuff. It was Tommy John surgery, right, on his elbow. So, but he's way ahead of schedule apparently, and they expect him to possibly be back by June, which is really shocking. Because when the injury happened last year and he had to go get surgery, they were thinking maybe he'd be lucky to have some September at bats, but now it looks like he might be there for almost half a season. So, and they're even talking about him having spring training at bats just for fun. And I'm like, well, what? Why? Why would you do that?
I mean, like Ohtani came back and hit while he was rehabbing from the Tommy John. So, I mean, I guess it's possible.
Yeah, because you're not throwing, so
Right.
I mean, the swing is a completely different motion, and it's if it's not going to affect the injury or hurt yourself, then I guess why not? So yeah, we have a little bit of shades of some former champions on the team, but they are dwindling. We had Belt, Crawford, Posey, Pence, and Panda. And after that, it kind of dwindles to.
God, is there anybody else? I have the entire roster in front of me. Let me see.
I'm thinking, excluding coaches, because there'd be Wotus. That doesn't count.
Belt, Crawford, Posey. Oh my God, Belt, Crawford, Posey. Pence. That's it.
And Panda. So, essentially, I guess Posey's the only one who's been there for all 3 championships, correct?
Correct, because Belt and Crawford were not.
Yeah, they
at
came
the first
later.
One.
Yeah.
Belt was a rookie in 11. Crawford, I believe, was also 11, maybe 12. All I
So
remember is his
one
grandson.
player
Holy
who was
crap.
just one player, because Bum obviously was on that list
Right.
until he left. So yeah, just one player from the 2010 team. Wow, that's incredible.
Man.
And by the way, they're going to have 2010 ceremonies this year because it's now been an even 10 years. So you'll start seeing that, which is
Oh,
kind of fun.
poor Buster. That's gonna feel like this is your life, Buster Posey. 'Cause
I know, right?
It's gonna be all these guys that he used to play with coming back with gray hair and stuff, and he's gonna be like, what are you guys doing to me?"
I'm still playing here.
Right?
All right. So speaking about Buster Posey, of course, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about switching him to, first base more permanently. But of course, when you still have Brandon Belt on the roster, that's kind of hard to do. You can't just stick Belt in left field all the time because he's a liability defensively. But I will say this: Posey has definitely, he said in media day that he's much more confident this year about his hip. He's optimistic about a bounce back season because he's in much better health entering spring training this year. While running was painful for Posey last February, he's sprinting 4 days a week and says there's a, quote, night and day difference in his hip. So he had the most precipitous drop off in his offensive stats last year from his career averages. And I mean, that sounds great, Eric, but everybody expected that last year because he was coming back from that hip surgery. So I don't know if I'm not too confident in much credence being into like, oh, well, now it feels even better. I just think the Posey we saw last year is probably about the Posey we're going to see this year.
I'm gonna go early on a limb here for this season and call that Buster Posey has his best season in his last 3-4 years. I think he's going to be renewed and rejuvenated with energy with having Kapler there. I think it's a new role for Buster Posey, as much as like Madison Bumgarner didn't want to play in a Giants uniform for anybody other than Dad, which is what Bochy basically was. I can see Posey's looking forward to a challenge, something new. Posey seems to be the kind of guy who eats information and eats knowledge and soaks stuff in. So I think having a new energy in the clubhouse is going to kind of rejuvenate him. And I think you combine that with the possibility of Kapler moving him down or to the 2 slot in the order and get him out of the 3-4. I think it's entirely possible. Buster kind of busts out and has a big season for him, something like pushing close to 20 home runs. If he feels healthy, I can see him, he feels Joey Bart coming over his shoulder. He's not stupid. He knows he's getting old. And, he feels like he's got to prove himself probably. And I feel it's just my early prediction. I think Buster's going to have a great year. I mean, I could be a swing and a miss. He could get into a fight with Kapler in the clubhouse in 2 weeks. But I think I could see that. I'm weirdly optimistic at the moment, so maybe that's why I'm making this call. But it's good to hear Buster feel that positive about his hip. His health has been in question for way too long. That it'd be nice to see him fully healthy for a full 162. Minus maybe a DL stint here and there that everybody gets from getting banged up.
It'd be so great if I just want to see him succeed. I mean, I want to see him make a Hall of Fame and all that stuff. And he obviously was early tracking to be a Hall of Famer, but with his last 3-4 years. Objectively, as a baseball person, removing myself from the Giants fandom, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I really don't.
And that's why I want a season like where he reminds people like, oh yeah, he's Buster Posey, where he's like, yeah, I'm Buster Posey, man. I am worthy. I am that good.
Yeah, I feel like
and
he's
that would
kind
get
of
him going again.
I feel like he's kind of in Will Clark territory, a beloved person who helped win, but he just didn't have the longevity and the duration of seasons he needed to have those Hall of Fame numbers. He's not at Johnny Bench levels basically, and it's like he needs to add a little bit more. Even though his defense is great, his leadership is great, all these other things are great, but the way his career fell off the cliff in a way just kind of hurts his chances. But his backup, though, presumably was going to be Aramis Garcia this year, but in the Dominican League, he ended up hurting his hip, a very similar injury to what Posey had. So he's had surgery, and he's going to be missing 6 to 8 months, and probably will miss the entire 2020 season. And so that really throws a wrench into the gears of Posey's backup because, you don't have your backup from last year, and Nick Hundley has now retired and been hired as a MLB special assistant with Gregor Blanco, by the way. That was a cool little story. But it's
Wait, with the Giants?
No, not with the Giants, for MLB. They're doing some outreach and some diplomacy, I guess, for them, both him and Gregor Blanco. But as of right now, let's see. I have the list here somewhere. They don't have a great backup. It's basically non-roster invitees.
Yeah, Buster's the only one who is now on the 40-man because Rami will be moved to the DL. He's literally the only catcher on the 40-man now. They've invited 5 guys to camp. One of them, Joey Bart, probably not going to break the team with camp. Rob Brantley is a backup candidate. Tyler Heineman, who I'm literally looking up right this second.
Yep.
Tyler Heineman is a switch hitter. He is a backup possibility. Chadwick Tromp is another one. Mm-hmm. And then they also just extended an invitation to Ricardo Genovez, a right-handed hitting catcher, I believe Dominican. So they've got like 5 guys now coming in. I don't think Joey Bart makes the team. Heineman's 28 years old, so he's got a little experience under his belt. He apparently hit a home run last year, so look at that. No, from the Marlins. Look at that.
I think it's interesting because they have a lot of these inexperienced backups that are coming into camp, and I just wonder because most people predict that Joey Bart will make the September call-ups, although it's not expanded like it was before now to 40-man like it was in years past. It's a whole new thing, and we'll get into that later this year because you have the roster adjustments to a 26-person roster instead of 25. You also have the non-expansion in September, which is weird, but that's what they're doing. And then, of course, the 3 batters per reliever rule, which, again, I just totally disagree with, but that's what baseball's doing. So we'll see how the managers adjust to that. But I wonder, with this injury, if that's going to accelerate Joey Bart's promotion to the major leagues, especially if one or more of these backups are, performing poorly. If we go into the season with Heineman or whatever as the backup, and in a month he hits, 100, it's like, well, Posey can't catch every day. We know this, and he shouldn't catch every day. We don't want him to catch every day. So what are they going to do?
Well, I mean, last year, Eric Kratz was the backup catcher on opening day, and he wasn't in camp with the Giants at all. He was in camp with the Brewers, I believe.
It was like a last-minute signing, yeah.
Yes, they also traded away Tom something or other to the Mariners late after they.
Is that Tommy Joseph?
Murphy, no, Tom Murphy. After they had traded for him, they then traded him away when they got Kratz instead. So I suspect Farhan is going to force Joey to show him something and go back in the minors and do it again before considering bringing him up. So I don't think this is going to fast track Bart at all, like people are speculating. I think we're all going to get excited over him, but the Giants are not going to want to start his service clock just yet if they don't have to. If they want to get more of the team together, a semblance of a team without Joey Bart in the mix, because they then have to figure out other positions to get Joey Bart in the mix. So I think that also is a strike against keeping Joey Bart with the club. So it's going to either be one of these 4 other guys, Brantley, Heineman, Tromp, Genovez, or some, like I said, some guy they trade for or claim off waivers right before the season starts, because Eric Kratz was that guy last year.
All right, so as we start to close out this podcast, I want to read over the transactions the Giants have executed since our last podcast on January 24th. So on January 24th, the Giants sent right-handed pitcher Trevor Oakes to Sacramento. They also sent right-handed pitcher Jake Jewell to Sacramento. On the 31st, they signed free agent Pablo Sandoval to a minor league contract and invited him to spring training. On the 31st, they also signed free agent first baseman Darren Ruff to a minor league contract and also invited him to spring training. So that's going to be interesting to see what his contribution might be. They also signed on the 31st second baseman Yolmer Sanchez to a minor league contract and invited him to spring training. On February 7th, they sent right-handed pitcher Luis Madero to Sacramento. On the 7th, they also signed Hunter Pence. On the 8th, they invited non-roster right-handed pitcher Luis Madero back to spring training. So they outright him and then invite him back. Then on the 9th, just yesterday, they signed right-handed pitcher Nick Vincent, which, of course, he's been with the club before, to a minor league contract and invited him to spring training. And then the minor signing, which we haven't talked about yet, is yesterday they signed Billy Hamilton to a minor league contract and invited him to spring training. So Billy Hamilton is interesting because that's a name we've talked about, 3 years ago when they were looking for speedy outfielders. And obviously his career has dipped quite a bit, but maybe he has something left in the tank. Anyway, I think it's interesting that they signed him, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot of fun to watch him run around that center field at Oracle, but until they allow you to use the designated hitter for your center fielder, that's probably not going to be the case. I mean, you can't steal first base, and that's always been the knock on Billy Hamilton, and it's going to continue to be the knock on Billy Hamilton. You mentioned all those moves, and it leads us with pitchers and catchers reporting tomorrow and spring training getting underway. There are, by my count, about 68, maybe 69 guys in camp between the 40-man roster and non-roster invitees. It's gotten so bad. Baggerly just shared this afternoon. It got so bad with so many guys have been invited to camp. We've never seen anything like this. It's like a football training camp. He said the Giants have a problem. As players report tomorrow, not enough numbers. That's what jersey retirements and a 13-person coaching staff will do. Yeah. Billy Hamilton will wear 0. First base coach Antoine Richardson will wear Robert Parrish's 00. Yep. I mean, that's what they have to do. That really signifies how different and how much of a new era of Giants baseball we've stepped into. This is a season like no other that we've ever seen. They are literally grabbing everybody and throwing them in the pot and seeing what works. Hamilton's the 4th non-roster invitee outfielder to include, and there's 8 outfielders on the 40-man. So you're telling me you got 12 guys competing for 5 spots. Yeah. Hunter Pence was signed to a major league deal. And that is something to stress because he cannot just be shuttled back and forth.
Nope.
Like other guys like Duggar and Shaw and Slater maybe, or Davis possibly. So that adds into the mix of things like that. And I started a preview this week, and I'm rolling it out all week long. We're recording Monday here, and I wrote the preview piece today. Tomorrow, pitchers is coming out, and then Wednesday, infielders, Thursday, outfielders, and finally Friday, I'll cover the coaching staff in the front office because there's just been so many changes on what the Giants are doing as to what the Giants used to do. Yeah. And that's why we see 69 guys in camp. I've had a running list going, and literally every time news breaks, like Kerry Crowley just broke the news that some guy I put it in my piece, but I didn't write it down here. Some other pitcher has been invited to spring training now. They're just extending.
Did you get your invite? I mean, aren't you going down?
I feel like Major League. I really do. The guy's looking at the list and he's like, "Who are these guys?
Who the F are these guys?" Yeah.
Because I don't know who half these guys are. I mean, this list of these pitchers: Matt Caracidi, Rico Garcia, Trey McNutt, Sam Maul, Andrew Triggs, Rafi Vizcaíno. I don't know these guys. I don't know who the heck these guys are. And so it's kind of I guess that's why my baseball interest is peaked now. I guess that's why I'm ready for baseball season. So that's why I'm rolling out a preview covering all these names with links to all their baseball reference pages and everything in every article. So, check that out throughout the week because there's so much to cover right now with the Giants being they're like basically a brand new organization from the top down. You got Zaidi, really you got Harris, you got Kapler. All his men are in place.
Crazy. So as we close out at Media Day and FanFest, some of the veterans from the Giants were asked about, Madison Bumgarner's departure to the Diamondbacks and how they felt about it. And so I have a few quotes from some of the players. Brandon Crawford said, this is basically about his first, at-bat or facing Madison Bumgarner. He said, "I envision it going well. I hope he sees or hears that." So that was kind of
That's the one that
interesting.
just made me laugh because
Yeah,
Brandon's delivery just makes that even funnier because he just
it
kind
does.
of he
Total
gave that wry
deadpan.
smile, I'm sure.
Now, what was interesting, though, is that I read that, obviously the players face each other in spring training and simulated games and all that stuff like that. Over the years, Crawford actually never had a single at-bat against Bumgarner, even in team activities. I found that shocking. I know it's lefty-lefty, and it's true. It's like Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford this year, when they play the Diamondbacks, we'll probably never see them. Buster Posey will. I was just shocked by that. So... they played together for 8 years, 9 years. They never faced each other. So that'll be interesting. Now, that said, because of the platooning and all of the extra players they have this year, you're right. He's probably not going to face him this year either. So we'll see what happens. Brandon Belt, quote, "I wouldn't be surprised if I get drilled in the head." That's totally what I expect Brandon Belt to say. But same thing. If they face Madison Bumgarner, Belt's not going to be playing first base. That's not happening. It'll be Posey at first base and, the backup, catcher. So we'll see what happens there. And then it goes, of course, Buster Posey, who came up with Bumgarner and caught with him in San Jose, said, quote, "The silver lining is I get to compete against one of the fiercest competitors in the game." Again, a typical Posey quote, just kind of, vanilla. Yeah, he's great. I get to face a great guy. So that's Posey for you.
That's the one I'm most looking forward to because those guys are connected at the hip forever.
They are. They were so connected at the hip. They came up together. They've played with each other for the better part of 10 plus years. And it's just weird. It's weird to see Bumgarner, on another team. But I'm very interested because he told Kerry Crowley back in December or whatever that he had more to say, but he said, "I'll tell you in spring training." And this is about, and we talked about this last podcast, about his issues with the Giants ownership. So we kind of posited what that might be. Go ahead and listen to 188 to go hear that, but. I'm really, really interested to see when Kerry and others sit down with Madison in spring training and try to get a little bit more info out of him to see, what it was that bugged him about not being extended from the Giants ownership.
I'm now looking up when the Giants play the D-backs in spring training.
Well, unfortunately, in spring training, now they will get to interview him, of course, no matter what. But most likely, Madison's not going to be pitching against the Giants in spring training. It could happen, but most likely
they only see each other once, and it's in Scottsdale. It's not.
That's what I read. Yeah.
Oh no, there's the other one. Okay, they do go
Yeah,
to
there's
Scottsdale.
very limited
look
time.
at that. The D-backs also work in Scottsdale at Salt River Field. So
yeah, it's 8 miles north of Scottsdale Stadium, so they're not too far away, but they don't play each other that much.
Only twice early on, because I guess you don't want to give stuff away.
Yeah, that's crazy. But all right, hey, so I also wanted to mention that you already talked about it at the top of the episode, but Eric is writing for our website, torchcast.com, so go check that out. He just posted an article today, and he has articles coming out this entire week, which is really cool. He's got the writing bug because I wish I had more time to write, but my daughter is, in fact, she'll be finding out in about an hour from now. No, 40 minutes from now. She'll be finding out if she made the high school softball team. So.
Oh, wow.
She had a whole week.
Day.
It is. She had a whole week of tryouts last week. When I tried out for baseball, it was 1 2-hour session. That was it.
Really? Not me, man. We had days.
They had a whole week. They had 5 days from 3:30 to 5:30. Really, it went to 6 every single day last week. And even then, today they post the cut list, so everyone who, quote, makes the team, you still don't know if you're JV or varsity, because what they'll do is continue to work out over the next few weeks as a team, and then they'll sort out who's going to be on varsity and JV. But that said, she gets to find out if she made one of the teams today. So she's really nervous. We're really nervous. Got my son's baseball practice later today, so we got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
Baseball's in the air.
Baseball's in the air. I love
here.
it. I love this time of year. I know. I looked at my weather forecast for our area, and there's like no rain for the next 15 days. So it's like, but we scheduled 3 practices a week. This is too much. I don't know. Can we make it all?
You're going to have a juggernaut on your hands.
Yeah, exactly. So you have anything else to pimp, Eric?
No, not at all. You can all thank my wife. She called me out one day and said I haven't been writing lately, so you can thank her for the Giants preview that's rolling out. Tomorrow is pitchers, like I said. Wednesday infielders, Thursday outfielders, and Friday I'll go over the coaching staff because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 13-person coaching staff, and we got guys like Kai Correa is the bench coach, and what do we really know about him? Andrew Bailey is the pitching coach, and that's Andrew Bailey was a AL Rookie of the Year in 2009, and he's now the pitching coach of the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
In 2009, Bruce Bochy was the manager of the San Francisco Giants.
Isn't that crazy?
When this guy was a rookie. That just blows my freaking mind. Brian Bannister is the new director of pitching, and I wonder what his role is really going to be, and I'm curious to see how their pitching shakes out going forward. So I'll kind of highlight that stuff on Friday because I was reading about him, and he like worked his way into the front office just because he's so good at scouting and has a real good eye for pitching talent and what pitching should be doing. So I really wonder if they do a diamond in the rough here with him as somebody in charge of their pitching performance or whatever the heck they want to call it. And Gabe Kapler's the new manager, and like it or not, he's our new manager. So, we'll dive into that a little bit on Friday too and stuff like that. And
and we also didn't mention that, of course, the Giants hired the first major league female coach, and her name is Alyssa Nacken. And so she was kind of a big deal here in San Francisco and the Bay Area. And she was interviewed quite extensively over the weekend. And I think it's great. I mean, I will say this. It's really sad when, you see all the tweets. And it's Twitter. So you have trolls and people who are just going to do what they want to do because it's anonymous to a certain extent, especially if it's a burner account. But it was just so sad to see, 9 out of 10 comments were very positive and just hailing it as a great decision and a movement for women's rights and, women can coach baseball, all that stuff. And then you see these posts. Some of them are, outright trolls like, oh, women shouldn't coach baseball. Well, okay, fine, whatever. But then you see some of them that are actually fairly, I'm not going to say eloquent, but written okay in terms of, verbiage and everything like that. So it's, they're not misspelling everything. But basically saying, she's never played baseball. How can she coach baseball? She only knows softball. She's a girl. How does she know anything? How is she going to tell a Major League Baseball player what to do? And it's like, wow, you just really exposed how vulnerable you are and how, you just fear women creeping into your world. And it's really sad because we've all had coaches, not just in our days, but we've seen in the major leagues, general managers, don't never play baseball. Farhan didn't play baseball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coaches, many coaches didn't play baseball. Broadcasters didn't play baseball. Scouts didn't play baseball.
Yeah.
There's many
think about this.
examples of it.
We played ball to a certain extent, and if we were struggling, we would take help from anybody. The great kazoo could pop out of the middle of nowhere and hover over us and give us a tip on how to get out of a batting slump, and we would freaking take it. I think people underestimate those kind of people. I think underestimate the ball players spectrum on this, where the ball players don't care. They're getting information and value from everywhere they turn now inside of a major league organization. Every coach they talk to is providing them insight or knowledge onto something new or something that they were doing or could be doing or something that they can now see on somebody else or anything like that. And all these guys want to take it because these guys want to make the millions of dollars and retire and have nice lives. It's a good life to be a Major League Baseball player. And those are guaranteed contracts. So most of these guys will foster those kinds of things. I mean, we see these guys go to any lengths to win baseball games. The Astros showed that. So, I think people underestimate ball players on this end and how they really just don't care that she's a woman. They're just happy to have another voice in the room to help them if they don't realize that they're not necessarily meeting the ball at the same point in front of the home plate.
Yep. So anyway, congratulations to Alyssa. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, she was a hit. Like, apparently people were all over her booth.
Yeah. No, it's great. And, the one thing I will say is she is 29 years old. So you don't often see a male coach at that age, which is interesting. You know what I mean? But I think that's a product of the fact that she can never be a major leaguer. And, men who are 29 years old are typically not coaching. They're typically still playing minor league ball or something. So I think that's why that kind of happened. But she's a very young. You see GMs, of course. Theo Epstein was hired at age 35 or whatever with the Cubs back in the day. So
Our GM's 32 years old. Scott
and
Harris.
that's right. Our Scott Harris is like 32. Yeah. So I mean, you get these executives that are young, but you don't typically see young coaches. But I think it's great. I think it's great for her. Wow, that was cool. I don't know. My daughter was just really excited that, she always asks me, do you think a woman could ever play in Major League Baseball? And I've been very honest with her, and I said, honey, the reality is there's only 700 plus major leaguers at any given time. And although I do think there's at least one woman out there in the world that could crack that 700, it's just going to be very difficult because there are another 5,000 men who are almost as good as those 700, and they'll never reach it. So for them not to reach it, to have one woman reach it, it's just going to be hard because, facts are facts. Women can't, on average, I will say, hit the ball as far and hard as a man or throw as fast as a man. And that's just, genetics and whatever. But I do believe that there is the ability for a woman at some point who is like that crafty knuckleballer or, someone who just has the hand-eye coordination of Tony Gwynn and can slap base hits till, the cows come home. I don't know. But, you're not going to see a Barry Bonds woman come up. You're not going to see a Hank Aaron woman come up. You're not going to see a Roger Clemens pitcher type woman come up. It's going to have to be kind of a niche slot for them to fit into. And I hope that happens one day. I really do. That would be great.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, did your daughter feel by the Giants hiring a woman that this leads to the possibility of a female? Because I'm of the mind maybe one day, but like literally everything you listed with the 700 and then the 5,000 guys. Yeah, I totally agree. That to me is the biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
It's not.
I don't want it to be a PR stunt.
Right.
That's what I don't want it to be.
I'm not saying somebody's not capable of doing that. It's just whether or not they'd ever get the chance is the question, like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah, but did it give your daughter like a little hope that, hey, maybe there could be a girl who or if I wanted to work for major league clubs, not saying that that's the type of thing your daughter wants to do, but I mean, did it now open the door for possibilities for her? Was it one of those things that like made her more interested in the Giants slightly?
Oh, for sure. And she just she's only 14, so she still views the fact that females don't play in the NFL or the NBA or MLB because they're sexist. And so she's like firmly on that. And I was like, okay. Well, honey, there definitely is sexism. There's no doubt about that. That said, the reason a female has not played in those sports is not because of sexism. It's just because, on average, a female can't perform to the same level as a male in some of these athletics. Doesn't mean that they can't do well. Doesn't mean that one single female can't crack it in the future. Like I could see a female kicker, which has happened in high school and college, right, and other leagues. The problem is in basketball, you don't have 6'6" females all the time. It just doesn't happen. So everyone's 5'10" to 6'2", and it's just not going to happen. It sucks. I would love to see it, but the males are just just have better genetics. It's just the way we evolved. And I'm not saying men are better. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, I don't want to get in trouble here. Trying to backtrack here. But you know what I'm saying, Eric.
I do.
I want to see it. I want to see it. I just know from a biological standpoint.
At the highest level by the most well-trained and tuned athletes. And so if a female athlete has her body trained and tuned to be able to do the same things at the same level, more power to her. Otherwise,
I hope it happens. I really hope it happens. It's just that, it's more akin to agility and accuracy for you could be maybe a good, dart thrower, badminton player, bowler, things that don't require as much brute strength, power, and speed. That's what it is. It's the muscular portion of it. Men are just bigger and stronger on average. So it sucks, but I hope a woman does crack it one day. I know that Monet Davis, remember her from the Little League World Series
she
20
likes
years
basketball
ago.
too much. She went that direction.
No, she didn't. So she signed with a
Really?
historically black college, and she's now a freshman with I forget the name of the college. She's playing second base for them, and
awesome.
she gave up basketball. So yeah, she's doing that. And I think her first game was 2 days ago. She went 1 for 3 with a couple RBIs. So that was really cool because it's like, oh wow, that was a girl at the time who made waves in the sports world with her Little League World Series appearances. So that's the stuff I hope extends into someone cracking, into the major leagues at some point. I know they had like the Silver Bullets touring team, 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Things like that. And, they played against, it was sad because I don't have the facts totally straight, but I know they started against minor league teams like low Class A, and they were getting crushed. And then they moved down to like amateur leagues, and they were still getting crushed. And then they finally moved down to like even lower leagues, like where I played, and they were competitive. So that's why they folded, because I think it was this hope of the most elite baseball women in the world can compete with the men, and it proved to absolutely not be true. And it just sucked because I wanted them to succeed. I really did. And then when at the end they were playing teams that I played on, it was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. And they finally folded. So maybe one of these days. That's what my daughter always said. Why aren't there any high school baseball girls teams? And I was like, well, honey, that's just, that's not the way things work.
That wasn't 15 years ago. That was 23 years ago.
And I said 15 to 20. So okay, I was off by another 3 years. Wow.
Isn't that crazy? It was the mid-90s, 94 to 97.
Jeez, that's way too old. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for episode 189 of the Torchcast. You can follow us, as always, at Torchcast on Twitter, like us on Facebook, find us there. Eric's going to be posting a whole bunch of articles this week. He already posted one today at torchcast.com, where we also post our episodes. You can find our podcast, which if you're already listening to now, you already know where to get them. But other than that, I think, Eric, you don't have anything else?
No, go read my stuff.
Yeah, go read Eric's stuff. All right, well, we'll see you in, 2 or 3 weeks or something as spring training starts, and we'll be back for episode 190. And, of course, when the season starts up, we'll be on our relatively weekly rotation. So look forward to it. Thank you for listening, everyone. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Aboom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torturecast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at Torturecast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.